freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dreams some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So
with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this great and wonderful country of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face, and the challenge that it poses to all of us with respect to maintaining our freedoms, our precious freedoms, which are under assault from a variety of sources, not the least of which is the fact that our freedoms depend upon character. We are in a country that was fashioned on the belief that if good people, people of decent character, people with integrity, people who had a sound moral compass, if these kinds of people were left alone, if government stayed out of their way, if they were free to prosper, that they would not only create opportunity for themselves and prosper themselves, but also create opportunity for others. That was the founding theory behind this great experiment in freedom. And every one of the founders knew that the whole experiment would not work if we weren't people of decent character. It all hinged on that. And there have been times when we have been truly great as a country, because there have been times when we have risen to the occasion on an individual basis and been people of good character. But something has happened to us. As has happened in times past, there have been periods, many periods that we've had of less than stellar character, and we've always paid the price for that. And we're in one of those times now. We have been for some time. And it's costing us. It's costing us dearly. I have a great example of that to share with you today, which I will do so in just a moment. But to make a long story short, it all hinges on character. That's the way we preserve our freedom. If we are not people of sound moral standing, if we can't be trusted to be people of integrity, then there's always the invitation for government to step in and try to micromanage our lives, pass rules, regulations, and laws, restrictions on our freedom. And right now we have literally millions, tens of millions of laws, rules, and regulations on the books, all of which people of not so decent character find ways to step around. So our laws can't save us. They never have been able to save us. Only principled people can save us, and that starts with you and me. And for the last 30 plus years of my professional life, I've worked with folks with less than stellar character and folks who have had the unfortunate happenstance to be involved with people of poor character and have had their lives darn near ruined because of it. And I post about these things on my blog at manipulative-people.com. That's www.manipulative-people.com. Have another post that posted just this past Friday, third in a series, on what kind of therapy works best when you have individuals of impaired character, and why many times folks seeking help don't get the help they need. And we'll be wrapping up that series next week. I also write for another blog, Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at counselingwith2lsresource.com. That's www.counselingwith2lsresource.com. The two L's is because it's based in Britain, and they spell it that way. They put two L's in counseling. And in addition to those two blogs that I write for, I guest write for other blogs, and I'll be making some announcements about that. I'll also be making some announcements about an upcoming webinar that I'll be having this coming September. And I also want to alert you to the fact that in addition to my blog articles and the other activities that I engage in, including workshops and seminars, I have 3 books that I've been fortunate to write. One is my first book for the Christian audience, and it is titled The Judas Syndrome, a 5-star rated book on Amazon or any of the other online booksellers or your favorite bookstore, perhaps Christian bookstore. If they don't have it on the shelves, they can easily order it. And the more people who ask for it, the more they'll keep it on the shelves. And also my 2 best-selling books, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of the Age, The Phenomenon of Our Age, it's an in-depth study about the problem to which I speak each and every week, the character crisis that we face and the toll that it has taken on relationships, on the fabric of our society, on the institutions that we have held dear for so long, and on our freedoms, and what we need to do to turn things around. And then my international bestseller, published in several foreign languages, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, considered by many to be the definitive work on manipulative personalities. So I'd like to invite you to avail yourself of my written work, also to visit the blogs that I write for at manipulative-people.com and counselingresource.com, and also to tune in every week, where I'm happy to take your calls. It's another live program today, so we can take your calls at 718-717-8296. It's an open mic night tonight, so you don't have to have a particular topic that I want to talk about in order to call in. If you have something you want to share, a question you want to ask, perhaps you've read something on one of the blogs that you don't quite understand. Perhaps you want to take issue with something I've said. Perhaps you just have something to share that you think the folks out there would benefit from hearing from. Perhaps you have experience with a disturbed or disordered character in your life. Perhaps you've sought help and haven't gotten the help you've needed. Perhaps you're trying to recover from a toxic or abusive relationship. Whatever the case may be, you have something you want to share, a question you want to ask, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call. I'm a little under the weather today with my voice once again. I have to apologize for that. And also, I want to say that the weather today is very iffy here in the suburbs of Little Rock, Arkansas, where the studio is, where I broadcast from. And we are expecting some really mean weather here momentarily. As a matter of fact, not too far north of here, a tornado just rumbled through. So we've got severe weather on tap, and I'm hoping that we don't lose power. But if we do, I understand that our producer is standing by with one of our pre-recorded programs just in case I lose the ability to come to you live. But for right now, we are live. And once again, as I said, I'm able to take your calls at 718-717-8296. Well, in addition to wanting to talk a little bit later on about the article I posted last Friday on the blog and the current series I have going on the blog, I really wanted to mention an article that I saw in the newspaper today. It's been making the rounds of stories on the other media, on the radio and TV media. And I'm going to read the headline here from our paper here this morning. It says, FBI admits to flawed forensic testimony. That's the headline. And the subheadline is, Examiners routinely overstated hair match evidence for more than 20 years. Now, as anybody who knows or who's familiar with my work on manipulation knows, and anybody who's visited my blog and has read several of the articles I've written on manipulation tactics or has read my book, In Sheep's Clothing, you know that manipulators, people of disturbed character in general, people with significant character impairments, are really great at carefully parsing their words. We have the most egregious example of that in the President of the United States at one time when giving a deposition, pretending not to know what the exact meaning of the word is, and suggesting that it was subject to some debate, and therefore when asked a question about something he was doing that wasn't quite right, famously answered, well, it all depends on what the meaning of the word is. Hard to trap the person with their own words when they so carefully parse their words, but this is the nature of manipulation. And you know, underneath it all, when somebody is doing that, when someone is being so careful to choose their words so carefully, all you really need to do, all you really need to know is that they're trying to put one over on you, that they're trying to get the better of you, that they're trying to keep you in the dark about the plain and simple truth. So word parsing, very careful word parsing, is often a huge red flag for a manipulative character and the things that they do. So I'm reading this article in the FBI admitting to quote-unquote flawed forensic testimony. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean when the head of one of the most important crime investigation agencies in our country says that testimony given by its agents was flawed. What does that mean? Well, flawed testimony can be given for a lot of inadvertent reasons. There could be some quote-unquote honest, end quote, mistakes. We've all made them, oversights, shortcomings, misinterpretations, not deliberate, accidental. That would be flawed forensic testimony. And then you read on that the examiners routinely, quote, overstated their evidence. Well, now, all of a sudden, the word flawed doesn't appear to be quite the right word to use in describing this. Overstated, what does that mean? Embellished? Said more than they should have said? Gave information that wasn't quite accurate? Engaged in hyperbole? What exactly does that mean? You know, careful word parsers always have to be followed up. And what really bothers me, perhaps even more than the fact that there's a spokesperson trying to CYA, basically, the department and its members so that they look good still in the public eye. What bothers me even worse than this careful word parsing on the part of the spokesperson for this agency is the fact that we have here a reporter, an independent investigative reporter, reporting for the Washington Post, repeating this language in this investigative article. You know, we almost expect these days careful word parsing and glossing over and sugar coating of key bits of information. We almost expect that from our politicians because they're not trustworthy. And the reason they're not trustworthy is because they're power seekers. Lincoln is reported to have said, if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, the old adage that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely is not quite accurate. People of deficient character are rabid power seekers in the first place, and they inevitably abuse the power they seek when they get it, because power is the name of their game. Staying in power is what they're all about. Nobody goes to serve anymore. So many go for the power and the enrichment they can have on the heels of their election to public office. And also the benefits, the incredible benefits. They don't play by the same rules you do, nor do they have to live with the same benefits that you do. So you almost expect these kind of shenanigans, especially the word parsing, the spin, as it were, from politicians. But you don't expect it from the only institution that we have left, namely a free press. The only institution that we have left that's supposed to hold these people to account. You don't expect it from them. But that's what we have. Now, I have to tell you, too, that these overstatements from the FBI for more than 20 years in forensic testimony didn't come from your just average FBI agents. Oh, no, no. It was an elite unit of the FBI. 28 examiners with the elite microscopic hair comparison unit. And of the 26 members of this unit, 26 of those 28, quote unquote, overstated their findings. What does that mean, really? That means they lied. That's what overstated means. That means they said they had a match when they didn't have a match. That means when the prosecutors with whom they were working really, really needed a match in order to convict their guy or their gal, this elite unit paid the big bucks to do a high-tech job. This elite unit gave them a match, even when there was no match. In short, 26 of the 28 elite members of this unit lied and possibly falsely convicted those whom they provided evidence against. Now, I have been saying for a long time that all, I'll repeat, all of this country's problems, social, economic, cultural, you name it, all of our problems stem from the character crisis. And that we won't solve them by creating new institutions, by destroying old institutions, by crafting new laws, rules, and regulations, or further impinging upon people's freedoms. We won't solve the problem that way. We have to address our character problem directly, and we have to address the reasons for it directly. We have to make it cool, once again, to be of good character. And we have to bring back a sense of shame and scorn for people who display bad character. We have to hold folks to account. We have to restore some sense of dignity and shame. And it starts early. It starts very, very early. We are the only species on Earth. We are the only species that takes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, day after day, week after week, year after year, for up to 30, 40 years of grooming, coaching, mentoring, so that we can function in an adaptive social manner. And not do harm to our own kind. And it has to start early. Character has to be built early. We are born naturally as savages. We are not innately good, as some philosophies purport that we are. We are not. We are not innately good and wholesome. We are not born civilized. And we are not all the same either. We all bring with us our own predispositions, and we all get shaped early on by different experiences. And so we need an awful lot of life coaching to function adaptively. And what's happened to us in the last several decades is that the institutions that foster character development and the cultural norms that encouraged and reinforced character development have all eroded. And so we face a crisis of character, the likes of which we'd not seen before. And families don't hold together. Marriages, it's almost a joke. It's almost a joke. And people having babies here and there and everywhere, making babies without any real regard for what those precious babies need in the way of 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, every day, every week, for many, many, many years, in the way of nurturing and grooming to lead a responsible life. And it's costing us. It's costing us dearly. We can no longer trust one another. And that's why our legislators, in their infinite wisdom, keep trying to fashion new rules that will keep us in check. And the only thing that these rules succeed in doing is restricting our freedom, because compliance is predicated on the character of people. I'm going to take this call, see who's on the line. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Hi, Dr. Simon. This is Vince Easley. I don't live too far from you. I'm over here north of Clinton, listening here on UCY. I really enjoy your show. I listen to it quite often. I've been listening for quite some time here and post your shows up. I'd like to kind of ask you about how you would view the degradation of society and how much we've really gone in the direction that you're talking about, where there's no shame. And do you see a correlation between perhaps society being manipulated for control, towards consumerism, and just the way society is developed into this disposable society, and consumerism, and just to keep people occupied, or how would you consider to comment on that?
I'd be happy to comment on that. Would you mind hanging on the line for a bit as I address that? Because I'd like to follow up with a question for you, too.
Awesome. I sure will.
Okay. I've written several articles on my own blog at manipulative-people.com and also on the counselingresource.com blog about shame, because you mentioned shame. We seem to be really devoid of public outrage about a lot of the things that folks do that we really should be ashamed of. And one of the points I make in all my writings and in my articles is that character-disturbed people of impaired character and severely character-disordered individuals have a huge shame deficit. They don't feel shame. Shameless is probably the best word to describe them. And I see that as the greatest single factor in their character disturbance. And the fact that we have lost our own sense of shame as a society and our own outrage about certain kinds of behavior that is truly shameful is another problem. And complicit in that has been the field of psychology and actually all the mental health professions, because for about the last 35 to 40 years, the professional literature has been replete with study after study after study that has basically tried to make the case that all shame is a bad thing, that it's toxic, that to feel bad about yourself as a person is harmful and detrimental to the human spirit, and therefore it is crushing to one's self-esteem. And so all the self-esteem advocates out there have been on a bandwagon, and you couldn't possibly publish an article in the past 40 years or so saying that there's anything good about shame. Now, guilt, on the other hand, they'll say is okay, especially in small doses, because that's connected to your behavior. It doesn't reflect on you as a person. So it's okay to feel badly about what you've done, but it's not good to feel bad about yourself as a person. Well, I worked for many, many years dealing with the most severely disturbed characters, and one thing that I learned without any question, I have absolutely no reservations about this statement, is that many of them felt badly. In other words, they felt some guilt every single time they did something bad. But that never stopped them. That never stopped them. What stopped them eventually and made them change their lives, if they ever did change their lives, is when they took a good, hard look in the mirror and no longer liked what they saw. In other words, when they were ashamed of the person that they had become and they wanted to be better, then things turned around. So I learned firsthand that not all shame is toxic and not all shame is a bad thing. I don't know whether that specifically addresses your question, but I've written about that extensively.
I think so. In elaboration, may I say that I don't know. You was talking about how people are born with a propensity towards not being good people, and I don't know what it'd be. This like step by step, incrementally, a person's heart becomes hardened. I mean, maybe some people are born certainly with character defects, whether it be misfiring in their brain or the chemicals or whatever. But I think with the society today that it kind of puts a person, everything coming in through the television. In the old days, it would, people had, like you talked about, shame, and they had the sense of morality, but they've certainly been lowered. The standards have been lowered, and I think the degradation of society is well propelled because of this.
Yes.
And when does a person become evil? Are they not certainly born evil, or perhaps they are and just waiting to become so. But
well, let me speak to that just a little bit.
They'll go along, and that's where we've ended up at.
Yeah, let me speak to that just a little bit. The old theory was that people are naturally good, and the reason that they become bad. I'm oversimplifying this, I realize, but this is the nuts and bolts of the old way of thinking. People are essentially good, and they become bad or they do bad things because terrible things happen to them that scar them. And in their pain and in their hurt, they turn out badly. And if bad things hadn't happened to them, then they would be good, as we're all good. Well, I'm here to say that when you look at the histories of some of the most notorious psychopaths, some of the most notorious sociopaths that we have had, people who in cold blood, dumped their wife's body into San Francisco Bay, or this Jodi Arias who made up this cockamamie story about killing this guy that she was in lust over and who didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore, and without any compunction. When you look at the histories of these folks, you see that they are not scarred. That, in fact, many times, it's what an individual doesn't get. It's what an individual doesn't get in the way of careful guidance and coaching. And sometimes they have everything. Sometimes they have the best going for them you can imagine. They have everything a person could have, and they're still spoiled rotten, basically. I know that's an oversimplification, but what I'm saying is that for this reason, we developed institutions over time-tested institutions that were designed to help build character in all of us. And when those institutions crumbled, and when our cultural values took a nosedive, what did we expect but to have a character crisis the likes of which we've never seen? What did we expect?
So what institutions would you be talking about? Churches and schools and government agencies and so forth?
I'm sorry?
You're talking about different aspects of the agencies that failed, like
absolutely,
like
absolutely,
the churches and the schools, and
absolutely. If we can't trust our government, if we can't trust our own government,
well,
who can we
trust? It's pretty obvious these days that we can. It seems like everything is upside down. Everything is that's black is white and upside down in every aspect. But most people still trust our society and our system, and they don't see it. So I think that's probably what we're all doing here with our voice is trying to talk about the problems and what's wrong in this world and correct and I love the title Character Matters. My theme is What Matters, so character is certainly among them, and should obviously be at the top of the list. And among what makes a good character, I think, is love. And I think that's probably what you're saying is the nurturing and stuff, the lack of nurturing that people have received. And I wonder why a person that something's bad to them has happened bad to them, why that they would return the same kindness in badness. I guess there's been a lot of study on that, and it's a psychological thing, certainly. But
yeah. Well, character does matter. It matters more than anything else, in my humble opinion. It affects every single thing in our society, and the founders knew it well. John Adams said very unequivocally that the Constitution that they were about to endorse wouldn't even work because it was fashioned only for a moral and religious people. It would work only in that case, and it would be a complete disaster if our morality.
We see that happened, right, with the politicians, the sociopaths and psychopaths that gravitate to these positions of authority to rule over, the masses that assume that they're benevolent and looking out for their interest, which I don't think is the case by far these days.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your take on this, and I think you're right on the money. What do you? I said I wanted to follow up with a question. What do you think is the number one thing that we need to do as a society to basically turn the corner in rebuilding those institutions and rebuilding those sociocultural norms that once made us decent people? What do you think we have to do to turn things around? Basically, what's the number one thing we have to do?
Well, I would say that first and foremost is, like I said, is remain in conversation with and talk about the problems and have an open discussion, and be sure that a person is able to listen to the other, because we all have a different sense of what's right. Some things are absolute as far as right and wrong. And, underlying these is the idea of love and to do no harm.
Well, and anticipating your answer, I have a follow-up. I think your answer is correct, frankly, but I have a follow-up anticipating that. Do you think it's possible in our day and age to truly have an open and honest discussion about anything?
Yes, absolutely. We're the first time in history we're able to do this, and thanks to the internet and the communication that we are able to have, even face to face through Skype and instant messages and so forth. The first time that the people around the world, regular people, have the opportunity to engage in conversation, and social media plays a very important part in this. So I've been very proud to, although I've been mostly all over the United States, the world was left out. But now I've been able to travel that and engage with people, and I see a commonality. Now, I also have to compare, though, basically, I hate to use the word religious, but there is a religious aspect of this. But it's not always, because some people, even atheists, have a sense of morality. So, but religiously, as we was talking about earlier, the belief that we're predisposed for sin and that that mankind cannot overcome this. And as Shali was talking about earlier this morning on UCY, as far as this idea of a rapture theory where people are going to become rescued out of this world, and it leaves people in a complacency where they say, well, there's nothing I can do about it, and just let the world go to pot. So I think that's fine to have that hope and belief, but also to realize that we should do everything that we can to make the world a better place. And
so you think
the smallest of things, from a smile to howdy do.
So you think that with the advent of social media and the other alternative media, such as the internet, like this program is based, that we have the opportunity, like we've never had before, for a truly open and honest discussion of the issues?
Absolutely.
I agree with you, and that's why I'm here. That's exactly why I'm here.
Simon, I really enjoy your program. I'm here almost every week. I haven't missed a few of your programs, but most generally I'm here Sunday listening to you.
Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for calling in. You've been great.
Thank you. And I'm glad that tornado went north in Cleveland County and missed you up there.
Thank you. I've been kind of a little bit on pins and needles here, wondering if and when the power is going to go out for tonight's program.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the thunder to get so close to unplug my lines here, so I think it's missed me pretty much now. Anyways, very, very much enjoyed talking to you, and we'll be listening more.
Thanks for calling in. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. Maybe the alternative media and the social media will save us. I know we can't depend on the traditional media anymore, because I'm sitting here looking at this article in the paper written by an investigative reporter, and it sounds like someone simply copied down all the carefully parsed explanations, read excuses, rationalizations, from the FBI as to why their elite band, their elite group of forensic scientists lied in court with hundreds of cases. If it weren't for DNA, evidence and exoneration, perhaps this would never have been uncovered. Perhaps nobody would have taken a deeper look at this, and perhaps no one would have fessed up to this. So it's not power that corrupts. This unit had power. Obviously, they had the power to provide enough evidence to send a lot of people to prison, deprive them of their freedom. But it's not the power that corrupts. It's the fact that 26 out of the 28 examiners in this unit were of the kind of deficient character that allowed them to misrepresent, lie about their findings in a way that favored the prosecution, and therefore falsely perhaps convicted hundreds of individuals, maybe thousands. It looks like there may be thousands in this case. So, I'll say it again. All of our problems are traceable to this character issue. That's the reason why at the beginning and at the close of this program, you hear what appears to be a patriotic sounding piece, one that my wife and I composed in 1999, and that I'm very pleased to say is getting requests now. We're getting requests as typical for this time of the year, as as Flag Day, or excuse me, Memorial Day, Flag Day, 4th of July, and then eventually Veterans Day in November, as all these holidays roll around, a couple of months in advance of the beginning of the holiday season, the patriotic holiday season, we start getting many requests for the sheet music and for the tracks for the anthem for the millennium, affectionately known by its subtitle, America, My Home. But its message and its premise is that this country just can't work without character in its people. It depends on that. We want to give decent people all the freedom that they can possibly have. That's what makes it work. That's what makes it all work. And each and every one of us, we have an obligation to preserve that freedom. We're watching it erode before our very eyes because we have abused our freedoms. Too many of us have abused our freedoms. Too many of us have interpreted our freedoms as a license to do as we please to one another and with one another, and without sufficient care or concern about one another's welfare. Too many of us have done this, and it's bringing us down. It's bringing us down socially and economically. So the reason this patriotic piece plays at the beginning and the end of the program is that in order to restore America, in order to restore its greatness, we have to restore ourselves. We have to renew ourselves in spirit. We have to be better so that our country can be better. And that's the personal message in the song. Listen very carefully to it, and that's what you'll hear. Don't take my word for it, and don't just listen to the closing bumper and the opening bumper. Go to the web, Google America My Home. Go to my YouTube page, Dr. George K. Simon. See the videos, see some of the performances, hear them, listen to the lyrics. So the lyrics are printed on my blog and on my website at Dr. George Simon. That's DrGeorgeSimon.com. And you will see that is, in fact, the message of the song. That our freedoms depend on us being people of good character. And I hope our caller is right. I hope that through our alternative media and through our social media, that decent folks keep getting the word out to one another, that we keep having an honest discussion about the true nature of our problems and what we have to do to stem the tide. We cannot continue to do as we have been doing. What we have been doing is we've been locking as many people up as we can and throwing away the key just to keep them temporarily off the streets. When it's an absolute travesty, it's an absolute disaster that close to 10% of our population can't even function. It's a disaster. And it's truly a shame. Our caller mentioned shame. It is shameful, the messages that our young people are bombarded with, day in and day out, from so many sources. You know, even the best of parents, even the best of communities, even the best of churches and other civic organizations doing their best to shape and mold folks, have a real challenge before them because of the cultural decay that we have faced. You know, when I think about the institutions upon which we have so long depended, that are in disarray or have decayed since just I was a young man, It truly breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I've given this example before. I'll give it again. Professional sports is one of those things. Now, I know it's never been perfect. I know the world of sports has never been perfect, and it's always had its share of controversy. But I don't know of many institutions, many social institutions, that had the power to shape the character of young men and women than sports. And some of my biggest heroes were sports figures. What class some of them displayed. What integrity some of them displayed. Role models for sure. And now you have athletes paid ungodly sums that athletes in the past would not even have dreamt of making. You have these folks shouting to the rooftops, I am not a role model, nor do I care to be a role model. Just pay me to play. Pay me to do well. That's all I care about. And pay me well. That's all I care about. It's what I'm in it for. And what's worse, here's what's worse. We're willing to endorse this way of thinking. We are willing to reward these attitudes, not just the clubs that hire, but the owners that pay and the crowds that support. You know how this would all come to a screeching halt? Don't go. Don't go. Don't turn on the tube. Don't pay for the tickets. They've already gotten quite out of reach for the average person. Corporations buy large blocks and give the seats as perks many times. We could turn this around. It takes our complicitness in our endorsement to continue to foster the decay that has led to the erosion of those norms and standards and values that promoted character in our people. And we can turn that around. Perhaps you agree, perhaps you don't. Perhaps you have a different opinion. If you do, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call. If you have a question about any of the articles on the blog, if you have a question on any of the things that I've written about, any of the examples that I've shared, any of the points I've raised tonight, I'd like to hear from you. If you have a beef that you want to pick, if you have a particular axe to grind, that's fine too. We'll be happy to take your call anyway at 718-717-8296. We have just a few minutes left, so don't waste any time if you want to get in to the discussion today. I just want to finish up, though, with a few more comments about this article and the thing you'll be hearing about more. I know there are a lot of folks that are unsung heroes in law enforcement. I know that. I am not meaning to paint with a broad brush. But I have to tell you that when I am a psychologist who sees very much some of the merit in behaviorally oriented perspectives. And I can tell you this. Bad behavior prevails. It's as simple as this. It really is. Just think about it, folks. The tenets of behavioral therapy and the tenets of behavior theory are simply this. Behavior is maintained or encouraged or increased by positive consequences. In other words, when behavior is rewarded, it's going to occur again. It's that simple. It really is that simple. And one of the reasons why we're seeing so much of what we're seeing today is because there are so many rewards inherent in our system for people who, A, don't want to play by the rules, B, want to get around the rules, C, want to basically screw other people, D, want to achieve power for its own sake, as opposed to securing power as the reward for bringing a lot of help and benefit to a lot of people. So what's happened to us is basically that we have rewarded bad behavior. We've enabled it, in the speak of the folks who use recovery programs, 12-step programs, with this concept of enabling, whereby we inadvertently promote what we don't want to have happen. And when you do that, when you enable and you reward, you see more of what you don't want to see. What's even worse than that is that those folks who are among us still, who really take this all seriously, the really conscientious folks, who take it all very seriously and who really try and who really do their best, we have increased the burden on these folks exponentially. In other words, basically, we have punished those who try to do it right. And if we keep punishing those who try to do it right, and we keep rewarding those folks who don't give a damn, we are going to see a disaster economically, socially, and character-wise, the likes of which we have never seen. It's coming. It truly is coming. But as the caller said, we can stem the tide. We can get the word out. We can make character cool again. We can talk openly and honestly about the institutions that we need to restore. One of those institutions being marriage, by the way. Wouldn't it be a great thing if we could really restore the integrity of the institution of marriage, where two people don't just frivolously get together in the first place, and they make it a point to stay together and raise a family and raise those kids right so that they become productive, contributing members of society? Wouldn't it be great if we started there? Boy, that would be just one institution to start with that would make a big difference. How about our governmental institutions? Wouldn't that be a hoot if we could actually do something to restore integrity there? And fortunately, I think the caller is right. The social media and the internet have provided us with new vehicles for an open and honest discussion of these matters. Character matters. It matters more than anything. I hope you'll join me in this cause. And I hope you'll tune in again next week for another edition of Character Matters. Take care. I'll see you next week.